I know we must learn to stand together, learn to live together, learn it's not forever. I know. Let's see.
Yes. Is me. Is that you? Welcome to The Middle, Politics and Profanity. I am your host, Ronnie Wright. With me, sitting by my side, the tango to my cash, it's Justin. What's going on, my man?
Hey, dude.
All right. On the other side of the glass, doing what he does so well, working the faders and the knobs and the buttons and all the good technical stuff there. The man who literally wrecked himself prior to checking himself, which they tell you not to do. It's Ryan.
Hello.
What's going on, man?
Not much. Getting over this cold that like everyone seems to have been getting.
What happened?
Not me.
Everyone's got a cold.
Yeah, I
well,
guess
everyone I know.
It happens. We get like that early cold season down here because we don't really have necessarily winter.
We got like 6 more months of this weather, and then it's back to 6 more months of this weather.
Exactly. What it happens, man. What happens is that really the winter people get sick in other places because they're indoors, but for us it's kind of like the summer because people are in fucking doors during the summer because it's so goddamn hot down here.
Yep.
And you wind up being in contact with a bunch of dirty, filthy sons of bitches, and what do you get for it? You get nothing.
So I worked
Plus a cold.
outside this whole summer
Did
in
you?
Florida, my first year down here.
I try to avoid it.
It's tough. It's not easy, but it's definitely not as bad as I thought it would be. You
No,
know,
I mean
living
once
in
you
the
get, it's like you know when it rains and you get soaked,
Yeah,
and you can get none more soaked,
right.
and it's just like whatever.
Yeah, basically. You can only get so hot, you know?
That
You're just
is
like,
it.
all right, fuck it. I'm sweating.
actually,
it's wet.
I did sound for a charity gig
Okay.
last night, and there was a kitchen. It was in a church. The kitchen gets really hot,
Yeah.
so even with their AC blasting, it was just balmy in there.
Yeah.
It was bad.
And you can never complain in places
This
like
whole
that because it's like
state
charity and churches and
Yeah. This whole state runs on air conditioning. It's
well, there's I forget what the fucking name of the book is, but it's like how the South really won or something like that, and it's basically how like after the Confederacy, you know, how after the Civil War, the rebuilding of the South, and then the building of like a new Southern oligarchy of you know the big companies down here that you know a lot of business moved down here.
yeah.
Because the reason the North won was because they were the industrialized part of the country.
Okay.
But then after the Civil War, a lot of the South became industrialized, and what really tipped the scales was air conditioning.
Yeah.
And once air conditioning happened, it's like then this population boomed. and
Because you need a high infrastructure to handle air conditioning in general. There's a lot of side jobs that go along with that.
So in the end, the South made out pretty well, and it was air conditioning that really...
I often wonder how they did it in places like here, my home state of Arizona, before air conditioning.
They were just, I don't know, they were hardier people.
It was
Yeah, they were
it was
tough.
wilder. You know, you think about all the places that are super hot, you
Yeah.
know, it's literally the Wild West.
Yeah.
And then you have South Florida, which is pirate country.
Yep.
So wherever there was really hot areas, you just had high crime and pissed off people.
It's true, man. That's true, man. Arizona, I don't know how well they handled it because people were walking into saloons with 6-shooters going and shit.
Yeah,
so
man. They're wearing trench coats in the fucking
right,
sun.
leather dusters,
Yeah.
and it's 108 degrees. So yeah,
But
it
you
might have been
needed
some heat
the
exhaustion.
duster for protection, which is the crazy part about it.
Yeah, it's like explain. I remember having to
The
explain to
turbans,
somebody.
like,
Yeah,
you have to
turbans
wear
in
a
the
gigantic
desert and
cloth
stuff.
thing on your head to keep you cooler.
And I'm like, you know, because if you didn't wear all that stuff, you would literally be a raisin within
Yeah.
24
Oh,
hours.
yeah.
Like all the moisture would be drawn out of your body, and you'd be, a desiccated skeleton. Okay, so enough about the heat and the humidity, because you know it's not the heat. Lots of big stories this week. Lots of big TV this week. Lots of big accusations this week.
Did you watch Mar?
I didn't watch March. You watch Saturday Night Live?
No.
We'll get to that.
I read about it, though.
But the biggest story this week, all of that, screw all that. The biggest story this week, fucking Dunkin' Donuts. What is going on with Dunkin' Donuts? They are literally dropping the donuts from Dunkin' Donuts. Now, look, I wasn't really sold on the idea of Dunkin' Donuts to begin with, because Who dunks their donuts? I don't. Do you dunk your donuts?
No, that stopped in the late 80s, I believe. People stopped doing that.
I mean, look, I've dunked some Oreos in some milk.
Right, that's about it.
That you do. So Dunkin' Cookies, if anybody's listening, they're thinking about opening a cookie shop, Dunkin' Cookies would be a great name.
Yeah. No, like dunking a donut into your coffee is like a deep labor union thing of the Northeast, I think.
Right. It's like, it's heavy lifting, man. It's not an Oreo. That shit, once it gets soggy, that thing can pull your arm off. So they go from Dunkin' Donuts, now they're just going to be Dunkin'. But like I said in my tweet, what the fuck does the Dunkin' happen with? Donuts. So, I mean, if you were going to change the name, you had to change the name. You can't just drop donuts.
Oh, they're going to save on aluminum sign space.
Yeah, but you know what? Look at the logo.
Half the cost right there. Yeah.
Look at the logo.
Yeah.
It's double D's.
Yeah.
Now what is it going to be? Just a D?
They're going to write it out probably. Something weird.
This is what happens when you hire like a new CEO or something, or some little whiz kid comes on the fucking team.
You ever
and
see
says,
The
you know
Office?
What? Yeah.
The show The Office?
Yeah, man.
Ryan did this.
Right. It's bad news, man. I don't want to know about this shit. This is when it gets really bad. This is when like Kentucky Fried Chicken became KFC. Fuck you. Yeah. You sell chicken.
Yep.
And it's fried.
The fake
And I don't know about Kentucky, but just the same. Yeah. It's chicken. I don't understand it, man.
Dennis Leary does a bit on this, but it's about coffee flavored coffee and beer flavored beer. But he talks about how like Dunkin' Donuts is the last bastion of coffee flavored coffee.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he freaked out when he was like, whenever they stop doing that, I'm gonna blow my brains out or some shit like that.
Yeah, man.
He must be going crazy right now.
Yeah. Because look, I am a Dunkin' Donuts. I am there pretty much every day of the week to get coffee. So they have the best coffee. It is the best coffee. Occasionally I get a donut. So I'm not concerned about them dropping the donuts, even though it's silly to mess. I mean, look,
donuts
man,
are really low margin.
Well, that's
what's
true.
going on here.
But from a business point of view, and I've run quite a few businesses, to build a brand is one of the hardest things to do, man. To build a brand where you can say it and it's instantly recognizable and people automatically will tell you their opinion of that brand.
Yeah.
Do you have a positive opinion of Dunkin' Donuts? And they're going to say,
it's a 1 in 100 shot.
Right. So
1 out of 100 companies will do that.
Dunkin' Donuts is now going to be Dunkin'. It's going to start at the beginning of the year. I can't even imagine what the campaign is going to be.
I don't know, but I feel like it's just a test. They'll go back if they have to.
You think?
Yeah, they're a pretty established brand and they're selling something everybody likes. They're just trying a modern feel, I think.
See,
you know,
you're too young to remember Classic Coke.
Yeah.
Classic Coke was never Classic Coke. It was just Coke until they came out with New Coke.
Okay.
So this happened in like, I'm going to say mid-late 80s.
Okay.
Coca-Cola came out with a new formula for their regular Coca-Cola soft drink.
After that fucking long?
Dunkin' Donuts! That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So they came out with a new formula for the Coca-Cola that everybody had been drinking for 100-something years.
Okay.
And they called it New Coke. Well, it didn't take but a couple of months of New Coke being on the shelves where people were like, fuck you.
Those are collector's items.
No doubt. Fuck you. We want the fucking Coca-Cola we've been drinking for the last 100-something years. They lost huge stock shares. They bottomed out.
I don't know who was the same Coke, though?
No, it was a different formula.
That's a little different than the Dunkin' thing, though.
And so they went back to the old formula, and for like a couple of years, they tried to keep them on the shelves side by side. I'm not even shitting you.
Guys.
So it was Coke, and then you had classic Coke.
Yeah.
And you had to make, oh shit,
wow,
I got the regular, I got the new
in America
Coke.
Must have been a nightmare for some couples.
Right.
Honey, what were you thinking?
Right. You brought home the new Coke shit when you know I like the classic. Now it's just Cokey.
Like I don't even want you to go anymore. Just fuck it. Like I'll go myself.
Right. You're fucking useless. You can't even read.
How many passive aggressive fights were started because of Coke?
It's fucking crazy, right? So that's my top story this week. Let's be honest. That actually affects my life deeply. All right? I like going to Dunkin' Donuts.
I'll go to Dunkin' for breakfast if I don't feel like going to the diner.
I don't step
As you
inside.
know, I'm a regular at a diner.
Yes.
And that's my in this society.
Isn't Coca-Cola the only company that can still import like coca leaves?
Yeah.
I don't know, I guess.
That is correct.
I think they
heard that
still
recently,
use
yes.
coca leaves. They just don't make it into cocaine before they put it in
Yeah,
Coke
they have
anymore.
actually special access to that. And
You know, that was actually...
You can Google that.
That was part of the Trump at the UN this week. He talked about the coca production
For real?
in Bolivia.
I did not know that.
Dude, we'll talk about that in a minute. All right, so let's start with the big fucking news. So the big news this week, of course, is Judge Kavanaugh going through his well, I guess the reopening of his confirmation hearings. We left it off last week with the first person coming forward with the allegation. She didn't come forward with her name, and then she did, and then it wasn't sure if she was going to come in and testify, and of course she did. So Dr. Christine Blasey Ford came in and did her testimony in the morning on Thursday, and to all, even the deepest, darkest assholes on the Republican side said, well, she was very credible and believable, and which should have, you would think, if she's very credible and believable, that would be the end of the game for them. Like, she made a credible accusation. It's not that anybody was questioning, hey, I don't know who this girl is. No, they knew each other. They ran in the same crowd. They knew the same people. They went to the same parties. No one disputed it, not even the judge. So the only dispute was, did he and his friend, get her in a room and get rough with her? And to all accounts from everybody who knows this guy and that crowd from those years, yeah, it happened a lot. Like, they all got shit-faced together and, stuff went on.
That's the non-publicized red line is like, oh, well, maybe it wasn't Kavanaugh, even if it did happen.
Well, that was another thing, and that guy slunk away really quick. It was a GOP strategist who came out with the idea that it was mistaken identity, to the point of naming another person that looked like Kavanaugh. And it was like, dude, slow your fucking roll on that one, man. You can't just make wild accusations about somebody who nobody said that guy did something to me. You can't just pick a guy. It doesn't work that way. There has to be somebody saying, I accuse this person of doing something to me. You can't just say, well, she actually meant this person. No. She said who it was, and that's who it was. So that lasted about 38 minutes on Twitter.
They crowd tested that. It didn't work.
And that's exactly it, dude. They threw that at the wall. It did not stick. So they moved on, which is, it's going to be he said, she said, which is other credible accusations came forward, 2 to be exact. And so now 3 accusations that are legitimate, and only 1 got to actually testify. And the one who testified, to all accounts, was incredibly credible. But did that stop them from making it like it was a done deal? Of course not, because it's, in their mind, it's still a done deal. So the second half of the afternoon, they trotted Kavanaugh out, and he opened up his afternoon of testimony by ranting and raving, screaming, banging the table, making accusations against the Clintons. I don't know. It's been almost 20 years since Bill Clinton was in office. Against the Clintons and a vast left-wing conspiracy to stop him from his white privilege of being named to the highest court, because he went to Yale, which he was happy to point out more than a few times. He went to Yale. And then, what's telling about his testimony, and about, what people were saying about his testimony the first time around, before there were any sexual allegations, was his lying under oath about things that were provably untrue. So, there was emails that he got with stolen information from Democratic operatives during a campaign year. And he got emails. Basically, someone stole information and sent it to him because he was in the Bush White House at the time. So he said, no, I had nothing to do with that. Well, they found the emails. And one of the emails was to him, and it literally had the title on the message line, Spying. These guys are great with this, by the way, right? It's like Russian collusion. You know what I mean? It's like, this one said spying. It's like, oh, no, I'm sure it was just, it's like, but you just said you never got these. You said you never received any emails like these. Here's the actual emails printed out. What do you have to say to that? Well, I'm sure it was just, they just used that word as a...
We were talking about voyeur porn.
Okay.
That's the spying.
Yeah, that's exactly. Okay, I gotcha. Because that's what. So Thursday, his entire day of testimony was along those lines. So they talked about in his yearbook about how he put the. Remember, I told you about boofing.
Yeah.
Oh, it was referring to flatulence. It's not referring to flatulence. In fact, one of the senators on the Democratic side said, "I have my staff Google this." And the Urban Dictionary says it's this, this, and this. None of that is flatulence. Basically, it was pouring alcohol, a beer in your ass, taking it up the ass, and something else with the ass. It's like, no, there's no reference to farting.
It's when you put drugs up your butt.
There you go. So it was drugs up your butt, alcohol up your butt, and getting it up the butt.
But I mean,
I think that's new, though.
I don't think so. Boofing? I don't...
Because, all right... I remember that becoming a thing in my lifetime. Like when it wasn't.
Oh, what? Like doing drugs up your ass?
Right.
Oh, no, man. It's been happening all the time.
Okay.
Since the dawn of mankind.
Yeah, exactly that. People have openings. They get curious.
I mean,
things go in them.
Realistically, I was talking about the term. Like, I just didn't hear it until later. But, I also played Dungeons & Dragons. So
right. So
it's entirely possible that in my non-getting laid in high school days, I would have missed that term.
The other, and this is the thing, these are all the small lies. And somebody who lies about small things, they'll obviously lie about big things. So that was one lie. The other lie was in his little calendar. He brought his calendar from 1982. And I can tell you, I was around in 1982. I had calendars in 1982. I don't have any of the calendars from 1982 still around, but good for him. In the calendars, it says he was going to so-and-so's house.
A whitewashed family would save all that stuff.
His 6th grade report cards right next to it. So it said, going to so-and-so's house for skis, which I would take to be brewskis, wouldn't you?
Oh, no, he's rich, so I literally thought of skis.
Right. So that was basically what he was saying. It was like, oh, no, that's not what that's referring to. The girl, that Renate, she was in the yearbook, and all these guys in the football team called themselves Renata alumnus. Okay. In other words, they all banged her. Right. So she's one of the dummies who came out like immediately after the accusation and signed the 65 women letter. Only to find out that these assholes put in their yearbook that they all fucked her. And then when she found out, she was like, well, that's just fucking disgusting. Yeah. And you just wrote a letter saying this guy is the best guy you know, and he was always fucking, nice to women. Fucking people are so stupid. So anyway,
did anyone come out and say that he had sex with Kavanaugh before because he stated emphatically the timeline that he was a virgin. I just want to know if he lied about that.
Right. So this is part of the Matt Damon thing last night when he was doing the Open on Saturday Night Live playing Kavanaugh.
Right.
Which was, I love beer. I drink a lot of beer. Sometimes I drink too many beers. And during none of that do I ever actually think about sex. I would never think about sex while I had too many beers as a teenage boy. It was the furthest thing from my mind. I am the most virgin drunk you ever met in your entire life.
You would think the girl might come forward if she heard the lie, but maybe not.
There were people from his college and from high school that said him saying that he was a virgin in high school and beyond is ridiculous and not even close to being true.
It sounds ridiculous.
Yes.
It could be true, though. Look at the guy.
from all of the things that he said in his yearbook and what his roommates and what his college and high school friends say, not a fucking chance.
Right, because you go to parties with very few objectives. Like, usually there's one.
Drinking and sex. I was 18.
The drinking is really not even an objective. That's really the tool that you have to pick up along the way.
Correct. And sometimes if that tool doesn't work, you just lock the door. Right. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Right. So no, that didn't happen. Then did you see some of the exchanges he had with like Senator Amy Klobuchar?
No, I didn't.
So she sat and she asked him. She said,
oh yeah, the questionings. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So she said, have you say you like beer? You've drank beer. You said sometimes you drank to excess. Have you ever drank to the point where you woke up and forgot the night before or parts of what happened the night before?
Right.
And he said, I don't know. Have you?
What was it?
Right, to a senator. And she's like, well, Judge, can you just answer the question? I'm wondering, if you ever have. And she had just gotten through telling him, before she asked the question, that she grew up with an alcoholic father. Battling his demons his entire life. And now at the age of 90, he's still in AA and he's still clean and sober. But it's something that never goes away. And then he asks the daughter of the alcoholic that she just admitted to, did you ever drink till you blacked out? And you want to be a Supreme Court justice? Because I can tell you as a Supreme Court justice, if you're sitting on the bench and you ask a defendant a question and their response is, I don't know, have you ever? You're going to say, bailiff, take that man away and throw him in fucking jail for contempt of court. Right? I mean, is that over the top?
Yeah. Well, maybe if your inflection was a little bit.
Right. Like the way he inflected, which was, I don't know, have you?
Right.
And it was like, what the fuck is going on here? I would have been like, hey, asshole, I'm doing the questioning.
Yeah.
You do the fucking answers. That's the way this works. I don't know if you've ever been in a courtroom before, Judge. But here's how it works. I ask the questions and you fucking answer them.
The whole thing with here's the thing. Here's the thing with life. In general, I think that you have to commit to the con. Whatever your con is, like he has to commit to this the whole line and sinker.
Yep.
And it's difficult for us as viewers. It's in life when you're dealing with people.
Yes.
Like, you don't fucking know.
But when you do know, it's like
Right.
It's like I just saw you
doing
do
it in
I
such
just
a
saw
high-end public line, like this is nuts. This is like an OJ scenario. Like everyone's fucking watching these guys.
And what's lost in the translation here, and I understand that tribalism. So everybody's got no matter what happens, even if I burn my own house down, as long as I win, what does it matter? So which what could go wrong with that mentality for a country?
Right.
What could possibly go wrong? But so I understand the tribalism part, but here's the thing. This is they call it this word for a reason. This is the Supreme Court. This is the court that's above all other courts in our country. And there are a fuck lot of courts in our country.
This is all about Roe.
Oh, well, I understand that, but I'm just talking about
I know, but along your lines, what you're saying, this is the Supreme Court. This is as serious as it gets.
So
literally.
The Supreme Court only hears cases in where there are judgment calls to be made. In other words,
it's
if
the
there's
most difficult case.
Correct. If there's a case that's a slam dunk, if the law says this and you did the opposite, it's a slam dunk and it's not a problem. It never gets to the Supreme Court. The only things that get to the Supreme Court are things that need to be interpreted, that need to have a judgment call. And if I'm putting you on the Supreme Court of the United States, I need to be sure about your judgment.
And it oftentimes goes back to a very simple action that will affect part of many people's daily lives.
Yeah.
So it's like something came up, a behavior within our society that everyone is like, whoa, we don't really know how to handle this. And these are the cases that get brought to the Supreme Court.
Right.
So
Radio Lab does a great podcast called More Perfect about the Supreme Court.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about the Republicans did have one good point, right? And I don't think it pertained to the case, but one dude did say something about how the legislature is supposed to be where the politics happen. And we have politics happening through all three branches.
Correct. And that's another of the problems. That's another of the issues. Throughout all of the history of the Supreme Court, we've never had somebody other than Samuel Chase back in the early 1800s, one of the original Supreme Court justices, who got impeached but not removed.
It wasn't always that the Supreme Court made such big decisions, or was that important?
No, well, it
was only
carved out their own power based on the Constitution.
Time, it's like within the last 60 to 70 years, it's the Supreme Court.
Well, the original ruling was against Adams, I believe. Was it the Alien Sedition Act? But it was early because he was basically jailing press for saying things that were detrimental to him. And so it came to the court, and the court ruled against him. And it was the first time that the court had overruled the executive.
Right.
Had overruled the president.
The law of the land.
Correct. So they established right away that they were separate.
This is how we're going to enforce this shit.
And even if the president is wrong, no one is above the law. And so we're going to go ahead and rule, in favor of the rule of law. And that is the kind of independence of mind and the clarity of judgment that get men and women appointed to the Supreme Court for the lifetime appointment. Just the opening statement of Kavanaugh in this hearing the other day was enough to disqualify anybody, not only from the Supreme Court, but from any federal judgeship.
So the Republicans, on this issue, some of them you'll hear say, this is absurd because there's due process, the innocent stuff like that. But I would say that the counter to that, the left argument to that would be, this isn't about a criminal proceeding. The Supreme Court stands for something more than an incident between two people. And the simple fact of the matter is, whether he did it or not, whatever happened in his life led him to get accused. We can't have that. So yes, in this situation, an accusation, an allegation might destroy somebody's life, but we're talking about a system of government that's of a higher order. Like, we're not talking about you just going away free. And so, we're not trying to there's no criminal shit here. It doesn't matter what your character is now or with your family and your daughters. That's irrelevant. We want somebody who's not embroiled in a sex scandal in the Supreme Court. It's as simple as that. I'm sorry, this lady came forward. That sucks for you, but I don't know what you did to bring this into your life, but that's your deal.
Right.
This is your fucking problem, dude.
It is literally the Donald Trump argument in smaller capacity. It is is it worth bringing down our norms, our structures of society and government for an individual?
Right.
And it's not.
It's not necessary.
It's never worth it. We've seen it happen everywhere else in the world.
It's a lottery. He's lucky to even have made it as far as he has in life.
And I reject the "you're ruining a man's life" argument, because this guy has had a fucking nice life.
Yeah, dude.
He was brought up white and privileged.
No doubt he will go through pain and suffering, on a personal level.
Embarrassment.
It'll feel difficult for him. But the reality is that adversity builds character.
Right, there you go.
Fucking beat.
Right. The GOP is the party of personal.
Bootstraps.
Right. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Figure it out, dude.
Right.
Make sure somebody doesn't accuse you of rape if you're going for the Supreme Court.
So
whatever you have to do or confront from your past, figure it out.
Right. Yeah.
I also, I'd like to point out that the political climate right now is, here's how I feel about it. Even with this case, we're all at a family dinner. We all hate each other. Instead of arguing over the things that we've done and that we hate each other for, we're yelling and screaming about the mashed potatoes.
Yeah.
I like them crispy on top.
It happens.
There's too much salt. Too much salt in the mashed potatoes.
Aunt Irma likes the skins in them. She's insane.
Yeah, she's insane. Nobody likes it that way. That's fucking...
The fucking skins that defeats the whole purpose of the mashed potato.
That's what I want to eat. I want to eat cooked ground.
Yeah.
It's dirt on there. Yeah, man. It's gotten to the point where we're not there yet, but having, this being my study in life.
I feel like this is such a big thing in media because it's a reflection of how heads are butting.
This is really, it's gotten to the point where at some point it's just going to break.
Yeah, everyone's clinging onto their ship real hard, and at some point each ship could break.
Democracy in modern times, as portrayed through American democracy, is an experiment. It's not a proven successful thing. It's
the
only
thing
been
that's
going for a few
proven
hundred
is
years.
the few results so far.
Right, but think about the few
A lot
results.
of that could be attributed to other things like capitalism and not necessarily democracy.
Well, there's a lot, right? But think about the few results. I mean, we've only been around for 200 and something years, and in that time, we've gotten to the point where we almost broke into two pieces.
Yeah.
And slaughtered almost 600,000 of each other to bring it back
and
together.
Other countries.
Right. We kept down an entire race of people under our boot.
Yeah.
During that time. And then we subjugated women all the way until just the past century, and some would argue even further.
Yeah.
So, I mean, American democracy is an experiment that has failed multiple times.
Right.
And only by pure luck.
Part of it was the Republic end of it is helping bolster the situation, helps get us through the situation.
Well, that's when the institutions and all that, when you have the trust in the institutions, where it doesn't matter if Abraham Lincoln got assassinated.
Right.
If you trust the institution of the presidency, the next guy is just as qualified. We're okay. Don't worry about it. But in this instance, we're not. We're not okay.
Yeah.
This guy getting into the White House it's not okay. When they talk about the adults in the room and all that other kind of shit, but when he does things like this, where you pick, this is what I told you, Mitch McConnell told him, don't pick this guy. This guy is the hardest guy for us to get on the court. Yeah. It's going to be really, really difficult. And boom, it blows up in his face. Because, Trump's a great deal maker. Fucking moron. So
that's Maher and Moore's line. Bill Maher and Michael Moore, they say that this is not okay. It's not. Like, people are not freaking out hard enough, you guys.
it's little by little. It's the old frog in the pot of boiling water argument. It's little by little. We don't realize that we're cooking
and
this.
We're like, okay, now it's getting hot.
And so at some point, the democracy is going to break. And this is how it happens in other countries. We've seen it happen throughout history. We see it happen today in places like Turkey and
literally all over the world.
In the
literally
Philippines.
Everywhere.
Yeah, where all of a sudden democracy breaks and one guy declares himself basically dictator.
Yeah.
And he does it because he's got the military to back him, and anybody who opposes him disappears.
Yep.
And when you have a guy who got elected off of lock her up, it makes you wonder, like, hey, this might be that guy that says everything's shut down, martial law, tanks in the street, and anybody who opposes me, you'll be asking tomorrow, hey, whatever happened to, we don't say his name. And that'll be that. American democracy done, over with. That's when I beg for Canada to come and invade. Come on, Justin. Get some French warriors in your fucking tanks. All right, so then, of course, last night, Matt Damon played Judge Kavanaugh in a spoof of the hearings on the season opener of Saturday Night Live, and it was fucking hilarious. If you did not get a chance to see it, he was really good. The best part of it was when he declared to all the people, I'm here today to clear my name to you, senators, in front of God and in front of Alyssa Milano. And then Alyssa Milano cutout comes up over his shoulder. Because if you didn't see, Alyssa Milano found the camera. She was right there behind the judge, taking pictures and tweeting, live tweeting.
A lot of Republicans are real mad about that.
Fuck them.
It's like, what?
This is their making. This is their doing. Mitch McConnell told them, and they ignored him, and now this is what they get. And Lindsey Graham.
I'm surprised more famous people weren't there. If I was famous, I'd try to get in on some.
Yeah, I know. And then it's like, oh, if you're famous,
that's
then
what you use fame for, to get into places.
If you're famous, then you don't get to have no political opinions. You just shut up.
Yeah.
Or really? Or do I just run for president? Is that only what famous people are allowed to do?
I was telling my dad that the other day, and I was like, dude, like, I grew up with this guy. Like, my mom and I watched almost every season of The Apprentice.
Yeah.
Like, I liked the
My
show.
mom met him twice.
Really?
Yeah,
my mom loved him.
My
and
mom
now
used to go.
All of a sudden, she's like dead silent on the issue, and I was like, "You don't watch The Apprentice anymore, do you?"
Yeah, my mom is a Republican. She voted for him, even though I begged her. I said, "Don't vote. Don't vote." She's like, "I can't vote for her." I said, "Well, then don't vote."
Yeah.
Don't vote. And she voted, like, literally within the first 3 months. She's like, "Oh my God! If I knew it was going to be this kind of a fucking shit show, I would have never. I mean, I might not have voted for her, but I just wouldn't have voted."
Now that I think about it, my ex-mother-in-law too was a hardline Trumper. It was pretty incredible.
And my mother wasn't a hardline Trumper. She had met him before. He was nice to her and stuff, and she like thought like, "Oh, he's a nice guy," you know, blah blah. But she's like, some of the things he says are fucking crazy. But she still voted for him.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of people. I think this 30-something% that they say supports Trump is not anywhere near 30-something%.
Is that the number right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think that's the hardcore number of people who would vote for Trump if they held an election today. It's like 30-something%,
so
33,
one out of 3
35%.
people you meet would vote for Trump actively.
According to their polls, but you know what? I ain't buying it. And
well,
hey,
actually, out of the people that vote that you meet, 1/3 of them would vote.
I don't even think it's out of the people that vote. It's out of the people they asked.
Yeah, that's what you know.
I don't believe it's 1/3 of the people who vote in this country that are going to vote for Trump if they held an election today. I don't think it's anywhere near that close.
One of my uncles is super skeptical of almost every statistic and news item. And like, there's a part like he takes it pretty far, and like I could see why that's the case.
Yeah, man.
You know,
because and so I think that when it comes down to it, there might be 30-something% of people in America that would vote for Trump right now, but have never voted before, are convicted felons, so they can't vote.
Right.
You know, all that kind of shit.
Felons can vote in some areas.
Some states.
Yeah.
You can get it back. I mean, here in Florida, it's a whole fucking shit show to get it back now.
It's almost impossible.
Yeah.
Well,
it used to be really easy. I used to walk around when I was running for office.
Yeah.
I used to walk around with applications for them to go and mail in to get their rights restored. And so they'd say, "Oh, sorry, man, I can't vote."
And Rick Scott made it like super difficult to where like he had to approve some weird committee that meets twice a year.
Yeah.
Some crazy fucking
that
nonsense.
he handpicks the people. Yeah, man. It's the same way that he rejected the high-speed train money from the federal government.
I heard about
and then
how
they started building high-speed trains by his friends.
Yes, correct. Yeah, I heard about how the system works. They only meet once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
You have to wait in a really long line. They're super rude to you. And I'm picturing this in my head. I'm like, that is a monarchy. Like, that is crazy. That's like a duke in his fucking county, like yelling at some knight.
Right. Well, that's another thing we could go back to, where people all of a sudden get capital punishment for stealing from rich people.
Yeah.
Chop his hand off.
Right. They're rich, so the thing.
How
is
dare you?
magnified.
Yeah. How dare you? How dare you disturb the king's peace?
Right.
Hang him from the nearest tree. Anyway, so that was. So speaking of the kings, Trump went to the UN this week. Did you see it?
Is this about the tariffs?
So
no, there's more.
He went to the UN. The UN General Assembly speech is a big thing for a U.S. president.
I seen it in the headlines that he went there.
So he did the UN General Assembly, which is basically 190-something countries. All their representatives are sitting there, all career diplomats and politicians, sitting in an audience with their headsets on, getting the translations of what anybody else is saying.
What was the keynote deal?
Well, here's how he opened. So he's talking about...
Oh, he's the speaker.
He's the speaker, keynote speaker.
Who let that happen?
So he gets up, he goes, and he says that he has been having great success and that his administration has done the most of any administration in the history of our country. Now, in Springfield, Missouri, that might play. In a room full of career professional politicians and
they've been studying our country from afar. Like
they laughed at him.
Oh shit!
They literally a room full of career diplomats.
Yeah,
diplomats who know better than to. They openly laughed at him.
One president just recently that you'd immediately think to that was like got some shit done, like for real.
Obama did some things. It's harder and harder these days to get things done.
One. Most people abroad really liked him.
I'll tell you.
He was universally liked in the left.
Dude, they as a contrast, they played his first time when he addressed the UN General Assembly.
Shit.
They applauded.
Okay.
They applauded him because he was the first black president, and
Bush probably didn't get a whole lot of good play abroad.
So here's what I'll say about George W. Bush.
Yeah.
I did not like the guy. I protested against him. I fucking hated him but I will say this. He got things done.
Yeah.
They were the wrong things. And I didn't agree with them. But he got them done. When he made his mind up that this is what I'm going to do, he got it done.
Yeah.
So I wanted to invade fucking Iraq to make up for Daddy getting... Well, guess what? He made up any old bullshit he needed to make up, went to the UN to get them to pat him on the back, and invade away. He fucking did.
Right.
So he got things done. It's harder and harder these days to get anything done. Just think about the last 2 years.
Yeah, he was president at just the right time. You know, the internet was
September 11th.
super young.
It was September 11th.
Yeah.
Once September 11th happened, every person had their balls shrink up into their body.
Yeah,
anytime people saw a piece of luggage left on a curb because somebody got in the cab and forgot it, they'd shut down the street.
Very easy to lead when there's fear.
But I mean, they shut down the whole city street in Manhattan. They had the guys in hazmat and bomb suits come over. It was like somebody just lost their fucking luggage.
Yeah.
But that's how crazy we were. It's an orange alert today. Orange alert. See, kids today, they're too young to even remember. We had a country that had color-coded threat levels, dude. The fuck is going on there?
There's threat level midnight.
And then they just kept on doing it. Remember, this is when like the Fox News, everybody had the waving flag. They've never gone away from that since then. But before that, nobody had the waving flag on TV.
Yeah.
Everybody draped themselves in the false, patriotism bullshit.
Remember when they televised the first Iraq War? They had the 3D graphics of the different weapons we were using.
Mm-hmm. So that was the thing. Hey, you know what? I'm an American. Once we were on the ground over there, I'm rooting for the fucking home team.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I was like, let's just bomb the living shit out of these Stone Age motherfuckers and kill them. Unfortunately, we couldn't even do that right. So yeah, he went to the UN and he got laughed at by the world. And he was, people brought up his old tweet about how the world is, Barack Obama made the U.S. a laughingstock. And of course, Trump actually got laughed at by the entire world's representatives at the UN. So you can't really top that. That's as good as you can get. Trump at a rally yesterday, talking about international diplomacy, said about him and Kim Jong-un, the leader of North Korea.
No one else did rallies, right?
No, nobody does that.
No president just randomly kept their political campaign going.
Did you ever see the movie Soap Dish?
No.
It's a movie from the 90s. It's Kevin Kline. Ooh. It's Sally Field, and Sally Field plays this she plays like a daytime soap opera actress, like a who's the chick who always never gets the goddamn daytime Emmy awards. Susan Lucci.
Okay.
She's been on Young and the Restless for 35 years and she never won an Emmy. Anyways, she plays like a type like that. And Whoopi Goldberg plays like her head writer on the show. So always writing her the best lines.
Downey Jr.'s in it?
Robert Downey Jr. plays the producer or the director of the episodes.
Okay.
Anyway, big cast, great movie, very funny.
Watch this when I get home.
So there's this point where she's really, really low, Sally Field, the actress. Yeah. And she's like America's sweetheart.
Oh, yeah.
And when she's in these really down times, Whoopi Goldberg knows just what to do. So she says, do you need it? She nods. So she takes her to a big mall in Paramus, New Jersey.
Nice.
Okay.
Can't beat the malls in New Jersey.
She has her coming down the escalator and Whoopi going up the other escalator. And she goes, ooh, it's you. And she starts grabbing the people around her. It's so-and-so from the day is blah, 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 from the Young and the Restless. And people are like, oh, and they all go back down the escalator and they're all crowding around her and they're getting the autographs and can I take a picture with you and all that. That's what Trump does.
Yeah.
Whenever Trump's having a rough week, fire up Air Force One, take me to some place that's fly over America.
Laughed at me. Let's go to fucking
Let's go to
Idaho.
Kansas. Let's go to Nebraska. Let's go to Montana. Let's go where I know they're going to sit there and they're going to pat me on the back and they're going to cheer every fucking stupid thing I say.
How's the weather in North Dakota today, team?
Sure, it's got to be fucking chilly still there. All right, so that was his big thing. His other show, he canceled his show this week, the I Fire Rod Rosenstein show. He was going to have Rod Rosenstein come in on Thursday, just in case the hearings went bad. He wanted to be able to fire Rod Rosenstein so he'd take the attention away from Kavanaugh. But I guess he got into watching the show because, he likes to watch a lot of TV.
Yeah.
And then I guess he said, you know what, cancel Rosenstein. Bring me another Coke and a Big Mac so I can watch the rest of this. Fucking useless sack of shit that he is. All right. So my other favorite Republican politician is Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz running for re-election. He is the most hated man in the Senate, even by his own colleagues. And he's running for re-election against Beto O'Rourke. Yesterday, Beto was on stage with Willie Nelson doing that concert that Willie had promised. And Willie had a song that he was playing called Vote Them Out. It was pretty good. But earlier this week, Ted Cruz and his wife at a very upscale restaurant were chased out of the restaurant. Protesters came in and they were chanting slogans and standing around his table. And
there was a lot of senators that got confronted on elevators and shit.
Yep. So he got chased out of there. Of course, Beto O'Rourke did the right thing, and he said, hey, that's not right. You know, guys should be able to at least have dinner in peace with his wife. And I agree. I mean, it's not the best thing to do. As he's coming out of the place and getting to his car, if you want to say, hey, you know, fuck you, you suck, you know, whatever you want to say. But to actually go into the restaurant while the guy's eating with his wife, that's a little rough. Okay, but they chased him out. So I think it was the next day, Bret Stephens, who's a New York Times opinion columnist, conservative opinion columnist, wrote an article, an opinion article on Ted Cruz. And let me just read you this. So again, he's a Republican, conservative Times columnist. Because he's like a serpent covered in Vaseline. Because he treats the American people like two-bit suckers in 10-gallon hats. Because he sucks up to the guy who insulted his wife, by retweet, no less. Because of his phony piety and even phonier principles. Because I see him as the spiritual love child of the 1980s televangelist Jimmy Swaggart and Jack Nicholson's character in The Shining. Because his ethics are purely situational. Because he makes Donald Trump look like a human being by comparison. Because New York values. Because his fellow politicians detest him, and that's just among Republicans. Because he never got over being the smartest kid in 8th grade. Because he's conniving enough to try to put one over on you, but not perceptive enough to realize that you see right through him. Because he's the type of man who would sell his family into slavery if that's what it took to get elected, and that he would use said slavery as a sob story to get himself reelected. Otherwise, you might say I'm his number one fan.
Jeez.
When I read that, I was just like, oh, that's fucking brilliant, man. Jesus Christ.
Ted Cruz, the Zodiac killer?
He is the Zodiac killer. He's the Zodiac killer, and his dad helped kill JFK.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy. Yes, he got Trump sat there and took a shit on what his wife looks like, insulted his wife, and then he's more than happy to shine Trump's boots because Beto O'Rourke is kicking his ass and leading in the polls right now. So I think Ted Cruz is done.
Just for reference. If anyone wants to know.
That's pretty close, man.
That's close.
That's pretty close. Somebody ought to start asking him, where were you?
He's such a goofy looking guy.
He said something about when he's away from his family, he just has soup. I have dozens in the pantry, which kind of sounds like how a serial killer talks about the limbs that he's cut off.
Sounds like Buffalo Bob. It puts the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again. Oh, shit. All right. So that was Ted Cruz. He's in a tough re-election bid, and I don't think he's going to be able to pull it off. Let's look at Tweets of the Week, my friend. Tweets of the Week. This one is going to be no attribution because I saw it a lot of places. Know the difference. It could save your life. Psychotherapist and psycho the rapist. That's fucking awesome. So thank you whoever put that out there. T-Pain at T-Pain USA. Women ain't fragile, delicate creatures that need our protection. They are hardworking, level-headed, life-giving spirits that deserve our respected attention. T-Pain is tired of men that celebrate their machismo, then play the victim card when caught. And no one played the victim card harder than Kavanaugh this week. My God, he blamed everybody. Except God. You don't want to lose that. This is from at Stacy Friday. Look at this, man. Just look at, we should believe any woman. She's mixed up. Why ruin a good man? Speed it up. We're on a schedule. And of course, wearing the obligatory I believe him button. That's the GOP. Picture. Yeah. It's crazy. They're bringing crime. They're rapists. Oh, wait. Are we still talking about Mexicans? Or are we talking about Supreme Court justices? Thank you, at Dear Aunt Krabby. Criminals and rapists. This one, if you still support Trump, stay 500 feet behind. I don't trust your judgment. And that's it's at eCarg, which is Gracie Jimenez. Thank you for that one. And Mueller Avenatti 2020, because I'll be in prison. I would actually vote for that ticket right there. Those are two of the best lawyers in America right now, by a fucking country mile. Thank you at Keno the dog.
Yeah, but the Office Space quote, they'll be in the white collar prison, not the federal pound me in the ass.
Yeah,
prison.
they'll be exactly that, man. They'll be in the white collar federal prison watching TV and taking college courses. Cool as a cucumber for 11 straight hours of questions, shouting and crying in the first 20 minutes. And they say women are too emotional to handle important political jobs. That's at Q-Star 1959 Ron. That's a good one, man. Because I remember watching those goddamn Benghazi hearings, and they just wouldn't let up. And she just sat there and answered every stupid question and let them rant and rave. And this guy got up there, and within 10 minutes, he's crying. Bitch. New rule. If I walk into your business and your televisions are set to Fox News, you lose my business. Here's my exception to that. Dunkin'. Because they're not Dunkin' Donuts anymore. Dunkin' Donuts, I don't go in there. I only go to the drive-thru. I don't ever walk in the business. But other than that, I agree. If you got Fox News on, it's done. In fact, to most people who have TVs on in their business, just put ESPN on. Don't put the news on.
I always get mad. I very rarely go to bars just because I don't like
Right.
them.
Try not to make your business political.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's like, they've got ESPN 8. I mean, you can literally have a different ESPN 8, the Ocho. You can have ESPN on every single TV, and it could be a different sporting event.
I always ask the bartender to put on Discovery. I'm like, I'm just looking for something real.
There you go, man.
See, that's why I like St. Lucie Draft House.
Why? They have Discovery on?
And even if there's nothing, they've got golf on.
Yeah.
Dude, when I ran a bar, I used to manage a bar. I was partners with somebody up in Farmingdale, New York. And was the quarter mile. It was a racing bar. That was the theme. And we had the TVs and stuff. But when there wasn't racing, there wasn't sports on, I always had a couple of PlayStations hooked up. So when people would come to the bar, and I'd be like, you want to watch TV or you want to play some PlayStation? And I'd pull up,
so cool.
Yeah, man. I'd pull up the stack of games. I'd be like, here you go. Knock yourself out. And that's
Dude,
it.
How did you not keep doing that for the rest of your life? I would be in there every night.
Right? Yeah, man. It was pretty cool. It was an innovation. That's why I was a partner in it. It was
Life
an innovation.
Is dynamic, Ryan.
Yeah,
Things
man.
change.
Yeah, exactly that.
I used to go to a bar in Portland, Oregon, that used to play esports. They used to play the StarCraft games and stuff.
Okay.
Dope.
That was fun.
Yeah, man.
Bunch of nerds getting drunk watching StarCraft.
Nowadays, people start trying to get the people to do Wii stuff. It's like, no. That's way too physical for someone who's drinking alcohol.
Very silly.
Yeah.
Right. They have to
break a TV.
However,
Right.
I would welcome the Ready Player One haptic suit virtual reality system. That'd be fucking cool.
You probably get dizzy in it, right?
See, because the Wii is too basic. But if you totally throw me in the world and I'm there and I can feel it, we're on the same level. Then I'll move a little for you. Otherwise, give me a controller.
Yeah, man.
You don't get dizzy if you get drunk in real life, put on the haptic suit, and then get drunk in the game.
Yeah,
okay.
You can do that.
Yeah.
I don't even know, man. That might be a couple levels too deep for my brain. I might just have an aneurysm and fucking kick it right there. All right. So... besides being a fucking political genius that I am, I'm also a musician. This week, we lost a killer musician who was also a huge part of the resistance of the 1960s. And that's Marty Balin of Jefferson Airplane.
Yeah.
Or Jefferson Starship, whichever one you liked better.
There was another musician that died recently, too. An old blues musician, I think.
All blues musicians don't die. They just fade away.
Yeah.
Talking about. So Marty Balin died. He was 76 years old. Of course, Jefferson Airplane was one of the premier acts at Woodstock in the summer of 1969. Their song Volunteers, Volunteers of America, that was a big hit. At the time, of course, the Vietnam War going on. And they never stopped that. Him and Grace Slick, the other singer in the band. Marty Balin was the co-founder, vocalist, and songwriter for the psychedelic mainstays Jefferson Airplane, Jefferson Starship. He died yesterday in Tampa. A statement from his family confirmed. No cause was given. He was 76. In 1965, he was an aspiring folk singer and the co-founder of San Francisco's The Matrix, a club that quickly became a petri dish for the Jefferson Airplane, which began in 65 until they finally got into their lineup that everybody knows, which was Grace Slick on lead vocals, Marty singing, a roving instrumentalist because he played pretty much everything, and lead guitarist Jorma Kaukonen, who I had the great good fortune to perform with in New York. Jack Cassidy on the bass and Spencer Dryden on the drums. They had huge hits like White Rabbit, Somebody to Love, Volunteers, and then as the Jefferson Starship, Balin was he was the writer on all of these. Miracles, We Built This City, Sarah, and Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now. So, you have one hit in life. That's a great career in music. To have that many hits is certainly
stunning,
notable. And of course, the Jefferson Airplane is a member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So, goodbye to Marty Balin. We are going to wrap it up here. We're going to say thank you for joining us for another edition of The Middle, Politics and Profanity. You can watch replays on our YouTube channel and, of course, on haroldbroadcasting.com. You can catch Justin's solo show, Mission Accomplished, on Harold Broadcasting as well. You can hit us up directly on Twitter at Hey Ronnie Wright. And to all of you out there, from all of us here at Harold Broadcasting, for Justin, for Ryan, we will see you next week. See ya.